The Reality Check miniseries is sponsored by Kathy Rose Ultimate Dance, Spotlight Dance Cup, Dance Olympus, International Dance Challenge, Dancers Inc., and Showbiz Prime Time.
In the New England area, around 1972-73, my mother, her best friend at the time, Helen Chiporian, and Helen had a husband named George, started a dance competition, and it was called Terpsichore. And Terpsichore is the goddess of dance, so that's where the name Terpsichore came from. And in those days, it was all first, second, and third, and it was supposed to run from 9 in the morning till about 4 in the afternoon, and it ended about 2 o'clock in the morning. All music was on reel-to-reel, so you sent your music to George Chiporian. He made the whole day on a reel-to-reel. So think about that. You couldn't hold a number because you couldn't find the next music. So people didn't hold the number. So I think to myself that I feel like I grew up in a time when competition was fresh and new, and people hadn't figured out how to maneuver around certain things and all of that stuff. This is an absolutely true story. In those days, if they said RHEE Gold, honorable mention, you went ballistic. You were cheering, you were jumping up and down, people were hugging and kissing, grandma was crying. It was unbelievable. And the reason that it was unbelievable was because there were so many people who went home with nothing. Nothing, zero, zip, nothing. And we, because I was one of those people at times, didn't quit dancing. You go home, and what you would do is you would work your butt off so that maybe next year you would get the honorable mention. And whoa, wouldn't it be something if you got a bronze medal, which is now a dirty word. So at that time, there really was Terpsichore, and there wasn't much else. And I don't think that my mother and Helen Chiporian knew what they were creating at the time, and that, what are we, 40 years later? Am I right about that? Almost 40 years later? There are so many choices to go to for a dance competition. It has become a part of our industry. But there's a couple more things about those New England days. There would be a number on stage, and it would be so good that the whole audience would stand up. Not just your school, but for some reason we had the ability to say, wow, that was good. And everybody stood up. And they'd assumed that it was going to win. And so they'd walk out, they go, we just saw our winner. Which I think is interesting. Because I think now, I'll say in 50% of the cases, if there's an awesome number on stage, people are going, damn. Which is interesting, isn't it? So I'm not going to paint it all as peachy keen. There were rivalries among schools. On a personal level, a lot of kids left the schools that participated in Terpsichore to go to Sherry Gold's school, because Sherry Gold was the one who did a lot of winning, hear this, in her own competition. But for whatever reason, people kept coming back. So there was this integrity factor that rose above all of it, and people could deal with it, that this woman would go home with all these awards, and she also ran the event. Sometimes she'd announce herself as the winner. If you find yourself at a dance competition with New England teachers, they're sitting together. They're talking to each other. And I think that it's because we've been doing this for so long that New England people realize how unimportant kicking someone's ass is compared to the fact that we've known each other for 40 years. This is my perception of things. In 1994, my mother passed away, young. And I think a lot of people in the New England area who had been a little jealous or whatever at that point realized, wow, I never expected that. Then Helen Chaporian, who was her partner, passed away. Then this other dance teacher, Carol Miller, passed away. And it seemed like the dance teachers were dropping like flies, frankly, in our area. Do you know that since then, whether they know it or not, there is no rivalry where we come from? Maybe new teachers who are coming into the fold, they may have a little. We all shared in experiences that led us to chill out in this dance business. And you know what? People come to our school from other schools, and they come from some of our best friends. And we lose students to people who are up the street who are our best friends. And the lesson of, could you come here for 1 second? The lesson of me being able to go to this teacher with my 40 dancers in the room and say, your stuff really inspired me this week, congratulations. And I make sure I do it in front of my kids. I gave them more of a lesson in that handshake with that rival teacher in, what did that take me, 5 seconds? Than I will in 10 classes. Did you get what I just said? Thanks. And it is my responsibility as a dance educator to set that example.